But the fellas also touch base on something that's going a little bit under the radar when it comes to the owners not necessarily sharing all related basketball income. The NBA media rights going into the future is not a guarantee to keep climbing up higher and higher. So owners now today are pivoting more than ever to diversify the way they monetize what's going on around basketball. And with that diversification, the players do not participate on that side of the revenue. The Golden State Warriors today are a prime example. And that's where in this part of the segment, we're going to get into some more of the behind the scenes of what's going on in the league when it comes to the media revenue not necessarily being guaranteed to keep climbing higher and higher, especially after these current rights expire. Because you're not going to necessarily hear this from the national media as the NBA owners are slowly turning the wheel and coming up with a brand new revenue stream while monetizing the ecosystem around their NBA teams. This is a new play. That's why we're seeing so many teams being sold, especially with these brand new owners coming in and having private equity money backing them up, as well as Saudi money. Owning an NBA team has moved over into a different asset class, which is having a complex portfolio of just real estate. You could be like the Golden State Warriors and have the arena, then have commercial real estate around it. You could have a farmer's market, fine dining and shopping. Also, most importantly, and this is what the Dumont family down in Dallas is trying to do, they're hoping when the laws change, they could also add a world-class casino right in that very same ecosystem. Again, the media side of revenue is an important factor for the NBA today, but the owners are setting it up for tomorrow, understanding that that side of the business is more than likely going to be down. Just listen right here as Mark Lazary, the former owner of the Milwaukee Bucks when Giannis had won that championship, he relays the 3 key revenue drivers of an NBA team.
Look, you only make money in sports 3 ways. So it's ticket sales, sponsorship, and media.
So right there you hear it directly from a former NBA owner who right now is involved in the investment side of sports. Going into the future, the ticket sales, they'll more than likely continue to go up. The sponsorships will be there, but the media rights going up for the next deal is not a guarantee. And that's where a lot of these brand new owners coming into the league are making a 4th entry into that revenue source, which is the ecosystem around these arenas. The Dumont family is hoping that gambling gets legalized in Texas so they could run a quote unquote, directly from their mouths, they said this, a world-class resort around that arena. That's how Mark Cuban initially sparked a relationship with that family. But with them having plans on just creating that ecosystem, it takes a lot of investment in order to make that ecosystem profitable. And as of right now, that is not considered basketball-related income where the players can actually have access to share some of that revenue. This is where we're going to hear the fellas speak on it, because make no mistake about it, if the TV revenue declines, that's less profit sharing for the players, while at the same time the owners are making twice the money just by having world-class restaurants, collecting commercial rents like the Golden State Warriors. They got a farmer's market. Hell, some teams even got into rental real estate. I believe the Atlanta Braves are one of the teams that have kind of dived into that. Again, the players will not be able to participate in that revenue sharing. This is one hell of a play by the new crop of NBA owners coming into the league. We're a little bit ahead of the curve, but you're definitely not going to hear shit like this on ESPN. The fellas touch base on not being able to participate on all quote-unquote basketball-related income. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
With team evaluations reaching new highs, should players be able to own some type of value to these organizations? I remember when I was a kid, the Warriors were not one of the top evaluated teams. And now I think it's number 1 or maybe number 2. So should the players that incorporate that really help get that value up, should they have a piece of the pie?
1,000%. You look at any company, whether it's Apple, the most important employees at Apple are the engineers. They get stock. Because it doesn't go without them. It doesn't go without the players.
And compensation, right?
Correct. Yes, correct. It's not an either or. It's a yes and. So it's the same thing. None of this happens without the players. And so someone who worked at a team for a number of years, I was blessed to be, you know, in the right place at the right time. These are the guys who deserve to have equity, not you know, other employees.
That equity conversation is really tough, but the fact that the NBA kind of has a monopoly on basketball in the United States, let's not get it twisted. It's not without participation from the government. And many of these sports leagues, they're allowed to somewhat continue their monopolies is because of all the tax revenue they're generating for the government by having the players as a W-2. You see, once you get to that equity conversation, that's where things get tricky because the players could actually, instead of getting a weekly check, they could just trade that in for stock ownership of some of these teams. And then if they're smart and just hire the right money management people, they could actually avoid paying taxes on some of their income by just borrowing against that stock. There's a lot of loopholes on that level. Instead of getting taxed as a W-2 employee at almost 50%, if they elect to take those stock options, they're only going to get taxed, I believe right now, at only 15%. But the greater loophole is that they can actually borrow against that stock and just pay the interest without even paying any taxes. There's some sort of loophole on that level when it comes to compensation on a CEO level, or just when you see some of these tech bros not necessarily take direct compensation. But just dialing this right back in, there's a lot of layers to that whole equity conversation because the players will also have to participate in the losses. And I'm not too sure if that's something that they're going to be willing to do.
I will add to that too, and it's, well, I gotta be careful how I word it. It's like those unicorns, like you talk about what Michael Jordan did. Like he had the whole world wearing red and black. Yeah. Like every color palette in terms of like consumer products was like Michael Jordan. And still to this day, it's crazy. And then you just turn into like blue and gold from Steph Curry. It's like, what are we talking about right now? And I think it's easy they can quantify anything. Mm-hmm. It's easy to quantify. They call it ghost equity now. And, you know, they got large language models that can break the whole thing down. It takes 2 seconds. Like, it's easy to figure out, you know, your value to a market cap. Mm. And I think that's what, you know, they don't want to start having those conversations.
Woo! Those conversations are going to get real tricky for the owners. They definitely do not want to have conversations about that because, again, with the media money potentially drying up into the future, they're now opening a brand new revenue side of the business, which is monetizing everything around the team and just building that ecosystem. That's commercial real estate, fine dining. The Golden State Warriors even have a flea market. And most importantly, with gambling on the rise, owning a team today is almost like having a medallion to run a casino. So within those very same ecosystems, they could eventually open up a casino, and that's going to bring in all sorts of brand new revenue sources. The NBA players, at the end of the day, if you have to evaluate a superstar's market cap like Stephen Curry to that whole ecosystem around Chase Center, that's going to be a very uncomfortable conversation for some.
There's been a lot of conversations about expansions. I got to hear $5 billion buy-in. The players obviously help this league grow, so they get a piece of that when we talk about expansion.
I mean, listen, we could make this simple. We should get a piece of everything. We ain't got to keep guessing and all that back and forth.
Hey, this is why I fuck with Fred. Fred is going to get into a bag right here because he's going to point out all basketball-related income should be shared by the players. Once again, in the beginning of this segment, Mark Lazary had mentioned the ticket sales, sponsorship, and media rights as revenue generators. But the owners today know that they're opening up another side to it, which is even larger than all those combined, and the players cannot participate within that. But yet, they are the drivers of it.
Damn, man, listen, how many players has been in the NBA? 4,000?
5,000, just under 5,000.
Just under 5,000 people who built, you know, a multi-billion-dollar business, and we should be getting a piece of everything basketball-related. It's called basketball-related income. Mm-hmm. Can't have basketball-related income without basketball. So, but again, we got to fight for that. You know what I'm saying? We have to fight for that. We have to put ourselves in a position to negotiate for that. Yeah. It's business at the end of the day. And I think I'm going to give these three guys right here a lot of credit for even starting some of these conversations to be in a position to leverage ourselves to get things. They're not going to give us nothing. Yeah. It's business. You're not going to give nobody nothing. But I think going back to the team valuations, you can't have it both ways. You can't lower the split of the pie and then grow the equity of your company and then sell out and then not cut a deal either. It's like, which one you want to have, you know what I mean? So we're the highest paid CEOs in the world. You know what I'm saying? We're the highest paid CEOs that you using our face, you posting what we make, posting where we live, they running in our cribs. Like it's, you know, it's deep when you really get into it, but I think that just simply saying basketball-related income, if you just stick with that, basketball-related income, how can you justify that without basketball?
Yeah.
It's just like how the Warriors end up building the Chase Center. Everything built around it comes from that original hub. With a very keen eye, the fans are just seeing one of the many games that the owners play on the billionaire level. And this is the reason why they are billionaires. They're able to create brand new revenue sources while cutting out many people as possible so they can keep most of it. It's the American way.
I think MJ kicked it off. Like, you got to give MJ a lot of credit. And that was on the consumer side, like endorsement, selling a product. And it was the first time a basketball player applied his IP and his likeness in the same manner as the, what do you call them, suburb, you know, the upper echelon community, the way that they sold products, mainly in golf and tennis. So you look at like Arthur Ashe, Jack Nicklaus, and Arnold Palmer. And, you know, Michael Jordan's agent at the time, he was like, I'm gonna apply the same type of setup as they did. And, you know, you watch the movie, what's the movie MJ they just did, Matt Damon? They did the MJ movie.
Oh, Air?
Air.
Yeah.
Like, Air kind of like, it showed you how they were thinking in terms of royalties.
Yeah.
They were thinking in terms of like my own line. And if you really think about it, Michael Jordan is probably still underpaid at Nike. If you really, really want to have that conversation. And so, and then Magic did it. I think Magic did an incredible job of doing it away from consumer products. You know, it was real estate. You know, it was in content creation in terms of who he's partnering with the Dodgers, and then how he set it up, learning from Dr. Buss and getting a small percentage.
Also, I'm going to add on Junior Bridgman to that list. He should be getting talked about the most because he never used his likeness or just any sort of popularity, even though by the time he left the NBA, it wasn't necessarily the big commercial thing that it is now. But he was able to build a multi-billion-dollar business starting from restaurants, and then he transitioned to real everyday essentials that this society needs structurally to just function. He's probably at the top of the Mount Rushmore when it comes to athletes transitioning to businessmen. And most of us probably never even heard his name. Once again, when you fellas got time, look up Junior Bridgman. It's gonna shock you.
What was Magic, that crazy deal Magic signed? He signed like a 25-year, $25 million contract.
Right.
And then we learned early on, we learned from them that those long-term contracts are outdated, like day two. So you want to be strategic. You saw the way LeBron, Dwayne Wade, they're lined up their contracts to fall in sync with a new collective bargaining agreement, knowing that the TV money was about to go up. So, like, you know, our players are getting smarter and becoming more business savvy.
The fellas also touch base on the game being very commercialized nowadays. And you can only wonder how worse it's going to get when it comes to private equity just coming into the league with these brand new owners just buying up these teams at rates that's not necessarily sustainable. Like anything else, when an influx of money just comes into it, the purity of the game will be affected.
I think we've over commercialized the game to its detriment, and that's all. Everything you spoke to, like how do we fix this issue, that issue, and it all comes down to like capitalism, which is kind of like eating America inside out right now. You know, look at our debt. Like, where's our debt at? We're in the trillions, and it's gonna keep going up, right? And you know, I've spoken to a few folks just all across basketball. David West, his sentiments is like, you had leaders of men coaching us when we were growing up. Now it's hustlers trying to get a quick check because that's where you can get a quick check off these kids. And so, you know, you're seeing all these AAU tournaments with the lime green and pink jerseys. That's like some of the worst basketball I've ever seen, but this is where all these kids want to play now. And it's like, what are we doing? You know, and then that goes into, we're over commercializing American players. And so by the time they get to the league, we didn't pick them apart. We hate their game. I think you said it. Jason Tatum should have been an MVP already. You know what I'm saying? Like, his body of work is incredible, but you know, they've been breaking his game apart since high school, middle school. And so now we see all his flaws as opposed to seeing the greatness. And we do that to all American players. I mean, we did it to Jaylen Brown, and now he's proving everybody wrong. Like, like, shut the hell up, you know? And I think that's something. Anthony Davis is another one. Like, I played against Anthony Davis in the finals in the bubble, and I'm just like, yo, this dude is unstoppable. You know, you talk about the trade, you say whatever you want. Anthony Davis was the first, he was number 1 or number 2, however you want to categorize it, power forward in the NBA at the time. So you traded one great player in one position, the best of his position, for another guy in another best of his position. And he traded in NBA history. That is an amazing trade, you know. But I'm just saying, like, we over commercialize, and we, instead of letting guys naturally grow, we pick them apart, and then now they're fearful of being embarrassed or making a mistake. So now, like, we don't understand the psychological trauma that comes with that. So even when the best players in the league get to the All-Star game, it's just like, I'm cool, I'm just gonna play it cool. But a little piece of them is afraid to get embarrassed, you know? And that's why we see guys fold in the playoffs. It's the same thing.
Now that right there says more about the partners that the NBA is teaming up with. ESPN nowadays is in the business of just being in the algorithm and clickbaiting storylines throughout the whole season. When you look at NBC and Amazon, they're actually promoting the NBA game. So again, Adam Silver is going to have to reevaluate his relationship with Disney, because the way they're treating the league, they've basically become the TMZ of sports, and that's actually hurting the league. But it is what it is. There's a multitude of layers behind the scenes that's just affecting the on-court product, from the compensation side all the way to the owners actually trying to keep these teams competitive because of that second apron. Low-key, the second apron in a way incentivizes teams to remain profitable by not necessarily competing. Mark Cuban in the past have actually spoke on this, how teams are more profitable when they sort of stay in the bottom bracket of these conferences. As more private equity money continues to pour into the league, this is going to be exasperated times 10. It's like a domino effect, because that will cause the NBA ratings to actually decline, thus affecting their media rights into the future. But who knows? It actually might not matter by then, because NBA owners will have a different revenue source when it comes to the ecosystem around these stadiums, especially if they legalize gambling. Shit, we're going to see casinos, world-class resorts. They could even take advantage of the league globalizing because of streaming, and just continue to have these fans fly in from around the world and stay in the same facility where there's a hotel right next to the arena, basically selling a ticket to an NBA game the same way Las Vegas sells an artist or just a performer doing a residency. People fly in from different states or just even different countries, and they'll be able to monetize that audience all around as they stay in the hotels, they go out to eat at certain restaurants, etc. These are definitely new times, but we'll see how that plays out. You fellas definitely hit up the link in the description below. Check out my NBA True Story playlist for more breakdowns on situations that's playing out like this. And until next time, you guys stay safe. Peace.